and this is the Video Excellent update for January-February. So to start off with, I'm sure you're all aware, but just thought I'd go through it again. Animated symptoms, we've had over 115,000 views so far, and what we're planning now to do is repurpose those videos solely under the animated symptoms title, so that the 12 days of MS campaign has kind of run its course, and we've got the learnings from that. So we want to take forward the animated symptoms series as a kind of solo project, as it were, and we'll be repurposing that across YouTube and Instagram, but having kind of particular focus on Facebook and thinking about what we can do across that in terms of burnt-in captioning, etc., to really keep driving the views and engagement of that project. And we'll be working very closely with the new digital marketing manager, Sophie, to see how this content can get more views and generate more conversations, and of course increase membership to Shift.ms. Part of kind of Sophie's task that she came in was to look at this, or part of all of the candidates' tasks was to look at this, and I think there's some really good ideas that came out of that, of how we could look at focusing on one of these videos a month and really generate a whole heap of content just around that symptom. So it's very exciting what we can do with that going forward. Brief YouTube update. There's the new banner in place that doesn't seem like massive news, but pretty much people are landing on that page on our YouTube homepage, and there was no explanation of what we did as a service. There wasn't a web address or anything like that, so we've now incorporated that in there so you can very clearly say what we do as a service. We've had 100 new subscribers on YouTube, which is good news. We obviously want a heap more, but there is kind of progress there. We're also going to be developing new playlists this month around user needs and key areas of MS diagnosis, managing MS and lifestyle, which I'll be working with Jason to get in place by the end of February. We're also doing a bit of work where we're working pretty much across 2 or 3 other working groups. We're looking to create what will start as a monthly recap of everything that's happening on Shift.ms service, getting a member to present that, and that really kind of straddles membership participation, increased membership, and video excellence. But we're really looking forward to getting that kind of rolled out and finding the appropriate candidate, and we're kind of scripting that and getting the kind of storyboard of what that looks like and how that will be a beneficial piece of content to really push people towards the Shift.ms service. So that's very exciting. Very brief update on the films projects. We've had the kind of first thumbs up, as it were, to the majority of our film projects. So that's very exciting. It doesn't mean the funding's fully in the bag yet, but it means that we can very much start the process of defining the creative treatments and sourcing the proposed production partners, and we'll be continuing to hopefully get the kind of clearance thumbs up for that across a number of funding this month. Also across all of those projects, we'll be working with Kathy John and a number of other MSs as collaborators and executive producer. I've already been talking to Kathy about the many things that we've got going this year in terms of film projects, so that's very exciting. And obviously loads of exciting work coming up, but a really big bit of news is that I'm sure of a lot of you that are aware, but we've got the go-ahead to work with Merck on the kids ? Project about people deciding to or not to have kids, all of those kind of important decisions people have, and we'll be working with them across 3 years. So that's really exciting and something new for us, that we've never done that. We've never had someone who has invested across a number of years, and we'll be working with Justin from Cool Hand Productions on that. A number of you know him from various projects that we've worked on, from animated symptoms through to some of the content he captured around the commute. But that's really exciting because it means we can make a far more resonating, important piece where we can go and get snapshots of people at the appropriate time. So at the moment we're working on the overarching kind of creative treatment for that, which is all the kind of different story arcs that we want and the overarching story arc of that. And then we're having a meeting with Merck on the 28th of that to take it forward. So that's about it from us. We're going to be meeting up next as a group to discuss. We're going to be reconvening and looking at the next steps for elevating the user content on the site. It's obviously user-generated content. It's obviously there within the kind of strategy KPIs, but it's really questioning what we mean by that and how it will be managed. We had some brief chats about that in our meeting the last couple of weeks, but nothing's kind of cemented, so our group will be getting together and running through that and defining next steps. Give us a shout if there's any questions. Thanks so much. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Hello, this is Sustainable Income Working Group update from Sultan. Couple of updates since our last report in October. We have been successful in accomplishing a couple of our targets. Those are primarily around the pharma funding, which is going strong, and looking at the exceeding our target for the year end. We also managed to hit our original target for the additional trust income. And that is due to the latest late-breaking news from Big Lottery Fund that our application to Reaching Communities Fund has been successful. Also, we have been successful with Bay Foundation application, which was reported last time as submitted. There were a couple of applications that have not been successful. Those include NatWest Foundation application and the application to Comic Relief Fund specifically. We have number of applications currently pending, which are two to Big Lottery Fund. One is Leaders with Lived-in Experience, and potentially Partnerships Fund application with Big Lottery Fund as well. We're looking for currently working on also on a Welcome Trust large multi-year application for relevant reporters. There are other number of potential applications been currently considered, but it's still being worked out as a part of the larger fundraising strategy and plans that currently Sultan, George, and Freddie are working on setting and developing. We, as part of that planning, we're also reviewing our community fundraising program, and at this juncture, we don't have a lot of updates, but we will be updating you next time on what the future holds for our community fundraising and the digital fundraising programs. So all updates I have at this point, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all on Tuesday.
Hello, this is the Health Benefits Working Group update for February. First of all, there's been an ongoing discussion around expanding the kind of strategic objective, as well as the actions and measures that fit within this working group. And the idea is to take some of the theory of change learnings, and that's both for Shift.ms and relevant reporters, and use some of those learnings and specifically the outcomes in those diagrams to drive some new actions and new measures within our working group. So, as I say, ongoing discussions. The next stage is to put a bit of a proposal together, but obviously this takes into account the pending completion of both of those models of the theory of change for Shift.ms and relevant reporters. The service evaluation, so we've had, on last checking, 78 responses, but even with, which is quite a lot actually, since it was launched just before Christmas. So we're gathering a bit of a baseline of data. I've had a bit of a look through, and there's a few highlights that I've pulled out at this stage. So in terms of how people use the service, there's a section on the service evaluation which unpicks that. So 43% of people use the service to connect, and that's the biggest proportion of people, choosing a different service out of the questionnaire. So 43% use the service to connect. The next biggest item was using the service for information, which was around 20%. So actually double the amount of people who come looking for information are actually looking to connect with people. And this kind of testifies to the resurgence of using the service to connect within certainly the kind of participation working group, and also helps us kind of draw more focus back to the health benefits of connecting, especially around face-to-face peer support, which is a very highly evaluated form of peer support. So another highlight was that around 90% of respondents claim that taking an active role in their own healthcare is the most important thing that affects their health, which is an incredibly powerful stat. 32% of people rarely or never feel close to others. So on the flip side of that, there's 70% of people do feel close to others, but there's still 30% of our new users who don't feel that, and they feel the social isolation. So this is going to be quite interesting to monitor over 6-month incremental reviews. So, yearly incremental reviews with individuals. So is that cohort of people likely to respond more positively than that in a year's time? The last stat is that 62.5% of people rarely have energy to spare. Well, people never or rarely have energy to spare, actually. So Emily pulled up that actually that overwhelming percentage of people who just kind of feel like they've got no energy, that vindicates a service like Shift.ms, a digital service which is at your fingertips, and kind of you don't need to engage in it physically or mentally, and you can reap the rewards without too much effort. So it does kind of raise the appeal of a digital peer-to-peer network, and we can build a solid argument around that. So that's the service evaluation, but the secondary part of this work is also Salesforce. So we'll be essentially using Salesforce to help us understand how people use the service. But Salesforce is a bit of a nightmare. So we're going to have a bit of training the next couple of weeks. I say a nightmare because they've got a lot of internal Salesforce language. So when you're trying to set up reports, there's a lot of language essentially just doesn't make sense if you haven't been walked through it. So we're going to go through that, and it'll help us build up reports, as I say. And so work has begun in outlining what we want those reports to be. Discussions I've been a part of recently are that we want to set up a number of reports that help back up some of the Shift.ms journey or roadmap work that we've been doing recently. So to understand exactly how many people become a super user, and then potentially we could start to match being a super user against the health benefits work that comes out of the evaluation. The next point is around the theory of change work. So we've taken the theory of change kind of onto the next stage of editing following the workshop that we ran during our strategy day. I've also sent the theory of change to Matt Geeve, who wrote the original theory of change for Shift.ms along the Tavistock evaluation. It was an output of that. Matt mentioned that a possible further step for the theory of change, and this is something that I'm really interested in, is to make explicit what our assumptions are about how Shift works. So essentially the stages between the key problem areas, audience, the things that we do, the outputs and the outcomes. So why does one lead into another? And to essentially what these are assumptions that we can start to develop hypotheses around, and they can be investigated through evaluation. And it's these assumptions that become really strong cases for support. So keen to explore that further. So as I mentioned, the initial edit has kind of happened following the strategy day, and is still ongoing. But we've realised that mainly because of the great feedback we were getting on the day from everyone, really, we need to start splitting up different sections to bring in as many people from the organisation as possible. But rather doing it in a scattered way, we think there's specific areas that people can offer the most beneficial input. So specifically, we think that around expanding the challenge and the needs. We're going to have a bit of a review, Sultan and I, and then potentially bring in George to look at that. And I think Freddie's input would be very valuable there. The what we do and the output sections. What we do in the output sections. We think can be split amongst the team. So we would like working group leads to, potentially not every working group lead, but we'll kind of write up a list to start looking at the what we do in output section and feed into it. It shouldn't be too strenuous. And then we actually believe that there's potential for some external help needed for the outcomes section. And we say this because a lot rests on this outcome section. As I mentioned before, we like to feed the outcome section into how we measure our service, so feeding some of those outcomes into the health benefits working group in terms of actions and measures. And we can start to build a case for support around those. And these are what we really want to try and prove or disprove through our service evaluation as well. So it'd be really valuable to have some of that external help to do that. And Sultan and I are going to have a discussion around who exactly we want to bring in to do that. In terms of the relevant reporters audience evaluation, so we've had 80 responses as of the 4th of February 2019. So aiming for 200 responses by the end of March, just a reminder. So a little bit under the trajectory required to do that at the minute, but we're putting measures in place to try and match that. So, for example, on all YouTube content now, there's a CTA that appears that pops up very early on each video, just saying, was this useful? Please fill in this survey. Originally, or up to this point, it's been after a minute. That's based on the fact that the expert's first answer lasts around a minute. But really, we want to bring it closer to the start. You know, if someone finishes watching a video after 59 seconds because they haven't found it useful, then they're going to skip that, and we want to find out that they haven't found it useful. So anyway, we're bringing it further up, which is good. We've also edited the YouTube editing template, so that's been developed to draw more attention to the interactive survey card at the end of the video. So again, that'll be more visually obvious if you reach the end of a YouTube video. Unfortunately, we can't do that on Facebook, but we're continuing to share links to the survey whenever footage is embedded on Facebook. So there's also the question of us re-promoting old content to increase relevant reporters' evaluation participation. So essentially what this means is we've got a bit of a dip in what's being released over the next few months. So in order to keep a healthy kind of turnover of people being going through that survey, I think the idea is to be looking through some of our old content, not necessarily just best. I think a random selection, otherwise it might be a bit of a self-fulfilling exercise. But if we have a good cross-section of content that's going back out, then we can draw people towards our surveys on the back of that. And Sarah agrees with this approach. Sarah Jenkins, who's our external evaluator, and she says we have a library of useful content and there is value in re-promoting it. Sarah's agreed to perform an interim analysis on data collected by the 15th of February 2019 for relevant reporters' Wellcome Trust one-pager application. And I've mentioned it before, but there's also a theory of change that we're going to look at developing for relevant reporters, because this is going to be useful both internally and externally for funding applications, and also useful for understanding kind of where everyone's part fits in that kind of diagram. So participation evaluations. Not much movement on the volunteer evaluation. People are still feeling very connected and very much more informed, which is excellent. Had 5 more responses on that, I believe. When I say very much more, 100% of people feel both more connected and more informed, which is kind of brilliant. The health impacts of posts on the forum. So still about 88% of people finding that they get what they need from posting on the forum. But the idea is to start to look at potentially micro-evaluations on the site as a means of testing that rather than it being an email in the future. And there's also a question of kind of fits into participation evaluations, but how do we improve the rate of face-to-face meetups through our service? So an update on meetups recently. We had a meetup in Sheffield with 7 MSs and 2 partners turned up. There is a meetup in London this coming Tuesday, which is a regular meetup, which is actually someone who's a member of Shift.ms and the MS Society, and I think it's kind of promoted through both. And also Ellie is to support people in arranging their own meetups as well. So Ellie mentioned that a plan is to contact key members in bigger cities and essentially float the idea of meetups. There's also ongoing discussions around a big lottery fund bid for a meetup tool, essentially, through the site, but that's on ice at the minute, and Gavin is going to get back to us with kind of next steps. And there's also maybe a slight crossover with our kind of energy training microsite as well, or resource that's going to be online, and being a part of the energy and creating meetups there could be a bit of a crossover there. So lastly, website updates. We've run a number of workshops with MSs and non-MSs. The idea with doing workshops with non-MSs is we wanted people who are completely new to multiple sclerosis to essentially run through some new designs we've been developing on the back of service design work and driven by organisational objectives as well. So we're still processing the results of this, but initial feedback has indicated that centering information and funneling information down distinctive user needs or questions, i.e. what's happening to me or how can I help, is not only useful for new users, but it's also, we've had feedback that it's also really good for returning users as well. And also the approach of presenting a question first, it was fed back to us, is an inclusive means of navigating the site. So the user is part of the experience and the information isn't kind of prescribed. It's a question that they might have themselves. So this is pretty good for the 90% plus of users who believe that playing an active role in their health is the most important or has the highest impact on their health. And that is it from the Health Benefits Working Group. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome to the Increasing Membership Working Group. So I've been given this duty for 1 month only, so please enjoy it while you can. So I'll start with the exciting development of the week. Yeah, we're very very pleased to announce that Sophie De Moro is joining us as Digital Marketing Manager from Tuesday the 12th of Feb. And Sophie's being thrown at the deep end. Her choice, I might add, but Sophie's joining the 7 a.m. train from Leeds and will be spending the full strategy day with us in London. Sophie's got over 5 years digital marketing experience and also has a journalism degree, which I'm sure will prove immensely useful. But I'll let Sophie introduce herself in person on Tuesday. So, PR. Mark and myself had a lengthy conversation with East of Eden earlier this week, laying out activity for 2019. They came with a number of ideas. I think 5 different campaigns were proposed, all directly linked to increasing membership. Those ideas will be worked up between Mark and Pete, who's our lead contact at East of Eden. One of those ideas was around leveraging our 10-year anniversary, and it's kind of, we were pleased that East of Eden kind of came proactively with this idea to us, but we certainly see this opportunity for us to get some decent PR coverage off the back of that, and it fits with what will become a programme of activity we'll do around the 10-year celebration. Mark feels that the date of our 10-year celebration is not that important, which I believe it is the March the 9th, I think is when our site went live in 2009, but instead it will be throughout 2019. But watch this space, more information will be shared soon. A quick word on awards. Miller will be working with Mark Webb, who's our head of PR, on basically submitting a number of award applications for content that we produce and various different areas of Shift.ms over the coming months. And Mark's got a pretty decent level of experience in this area and has had some decent success. But in terms of content that we produced recently, Mark believes it's still content's recent enough to submit awards applications for the Commute film, Hidden, and also the animated Symptoms films. So those will probably be the priority, but that'll become an ongoing task for Miller and Mark to work together. And from Mark's view, he feels the key is that we're able to add the phrase award-winning ahead of as much of our content as possible. It's less important in his view about the how big a name that award scheme might be. Anyway, let's move on to conversion rate optimization. So this is an area that's been led by Sam and supported by Rob and by Chelsea. Chelsea is one of our freelance consultants. And the plan over the next month is to develop and refine some kind of specific landing pages. And these will be from ad groups, from social channels, from different campaigns that we run. And very much it's just trying to increase the amount of visitors who become members of Shift.ms. I think there's a keenness to simplify the sign-up process and also to perhaps develop multiple routes in to signing up to Shift.ms. Sam will, I'm sure, be sharing more information about that in the coming weeks. So let's move to SEO improvements. So Mike's now working kind of approximately 3 days a week on a consultancy basis, focusing specifically on SEO. So we're very lucky to have that kind of dedicated support, and Sam will be supporting. I suppose Sam and Martin will be supporting from a dev point of view. But on the list is some URL housekeeping. The footer's just been reintroduced to the site, and then there's a number of words which I don't even know how to pronounce, so I'm not going to say them. But Mike's got a pretty long hit list for Feb to get through, all with the aim of improving our SEO. In terms of our link building strategy, so Mike is kind of continuing with a plan to have gaining between 2 and 4 quality links per month, and as he terms it, 1 very high quality link, and that will all boost our SEO. And Mike is kind of working with Sam with a doc of kind of what the hit list is and what the success is of these quality and very high quality links. So we'll be in touch about that. Next section is around MS nurses and essentially just kind of healthcare professional engagement. Now this is an area which kind of needs to be revitalised. Monthly emails have been going out to our kind of healthcare professional database for a while, but myself and Amy will be spending some time on understanding how we can put a plan in place for healthcare professional engagement and really understanding what kind of regular face-to-face meetings might look like, mailings, etc. But Amy, myself, and Sophie will be working on that and sharing information in due course. The next area is Facebook ads, and perhaps I should, something I haven't said in this call is, we're 8 months into our financial year, and we're quite a bit behind where we need to be on our member rates for this year. Our Facebook ads have dramatically improved over the last 8 weeks. Mike has done some, I don't know how Mike's done it, but the cost per acquisition has dramatically dropped, and we're looking to double the budget for Facebook over the next few months to catch up to where we should be in terms of our targets. Facebook is actually proving considerably lower than any of our other recruitment channels for bringing in new members. Mike's also going to work on YouTube and Insta, and building up having a new approach to recruitment ads on there. What we've done previously has been mixed, but the idea is to have a more kind of in-depth campaign and have a real go at it over the next few months. Instagram advertising has been on hold for a while, but we hope that with Sophie joining the team, that can be kind of a dual process as we build up more organic content on Instagram too. The next area is Google Ads, and particularly our Google Ads grant. So Chelsea has been amazingly patient in dealing with Google it seems every week or two, decide that our ads are kind of contravening their policy, and then they immediately kind of pause all our ads, and then Chelsea has to then spend quite a long time getting through to a human being at Google and reassuring them that everything we're doing is absolutely above board. But the ads are live at the moment. We've had the most successful month, December I should say, was the most successful month that we've had since Chelsea's been involved in the ads. So that's, I think she got involved in April. So things are looking positive on the Google Ads grant. For those who don't know, we get around $10,000 per month to spend on Google AdWords. It sounds amazing. The reality is quite different, but it's still kind of free advertising spend. And Chelsea has experience in this exact sector, so she's very much helping us keep those alive and optimizing the budget as best as possible. The next area is around pending users. So this is essentially, I believe, when people sign up to the site but don't complete the process. So they enter their email, but they don't actually get to the point of clicking the activation link. And the number would have increased since I wrote this number down, but it was 3,730 pending users earlier this week. That's a significant volume, and very much the plan that this month, it feels like this conversation has been going on for some years, but then we're going to just make a decision this month about how we communicate with those members and how we make as many of them active as possible. But Sam and I imagine Amy and Martin will be working on that over the next month or so, and we'll keep you updated. The next area is around what we've called a member wall. I'm not sure if that's the right title, but essentially it's around the idea of having gated content, and whether that's kind of gating the whole of the service or just particular elements of our content, all with a view to increasing sign-ups. There's various examples we're looking at, and Sam's kind of building a proposal with some suggestions of how we could go about this. So to watch this space. I mean, it's a difficult area. People are have very strong opinions about it. I'm sure we all have our own views of what we do when kind of sign-up walls come up when you're on a website. But Sam's kind of navigating how best we could deliver that wall to our service, and if it's the right thing at all. But further information to come. But I think the idea more generally about having kind of gated content that's kind of seen by the members only seems to be the right direction to go in. But as always, devil's in the detail. And then finally, a small point really, but it's just something that was mentioned, and it's something we'll continue to do. But alongside our advertising and the other ways we kind of shout about or try and shout out to MSs about becoming a member, is something we really need to keep doing on social as well. And of course we need to get the balance right, but we're keen to understand what impact that might have. The key is we can track it and we can understand if it's working. But that, I think, completes the roundup of increasing membership. Very much look forward to any questions you might have on Tuesday, and thank you for listening.
Here is the participation working group update. I'll keep it quite short and sweet. So participation, Rob and I have had some time this week to relook over the participation roadmap. We're particularly focusing at the moment looking at exit and drop-off routes and how potentially those could be turned into opportunities. We have been looking particularly at the connector aspect and how meetups, direct messages, etc. Potentially could be part of that journey. We've also been creating a list of data points to help us create reports on Salesforce, and I know that training is due to be arranged with Salesforce on that. As I think probably Rob will tell you, the post forum feedback is just getting better and better. I think we're now at about 80 I think it's just over 88% of people who are getting the response that they need. So there's been a bit of an increase from last month. It's getting quite good engagement as well. So we're getting about a 35% response rate to that email itself. Sam and I have had a bit of a chat about linear emails. Some of the timings were off, thanks to Ellie for highlighting that. So they've now been readdressed. So people should be getting the onboarding emails at the right time, which hopefully should help to drive some of the engagement and participation on the site. Sam, Rob, Ellie and I have also been talking about the weekly digest video. Again, this is something that Rob or Sam might talk a little bit more about. But essentially, this is going to be MSer-led. We have a volunteer who potentially can help us collate the information that's been going on the site, help us kind of write a script. And then the idea is to have an MSer, currently Melissa is in our head, to create a short 60-second roundup, probably starting monthly, but the idea being that potentially that could move to weekly, to really just talk about kind of what's been going on at Shift.ms, what are kind of the hot topics, messages for friends and family, etc., etc. So that's really exciting that we're moving that forward. Moving on to the Buddy Network, I had a really good chat with Karen Vernon, who is an MS specialist nurse out in Salford, to help us create a steering group for the Buddy Network. It's something that we've been talking about for a couple of months now, and it was really kind of kicked off by the strategy day we had back in October. Karen is really happy to help us establish and create the group, and has suggested quite a few names, and my plan is to introduce myself via email. Karen has kind of sent an initial email, and I'm going to follow that up. So I need to do a bit of work around what that will actually look like, and how we're going to move forward on that. Ellie has been throwing herself completely into the Buddy Network. A lot of the systems and processes have sort of been streamlined a little bit, particularly kind of the recording of data. In this week alone, I believe, or certainly within the last 2 weeks, we've had 5 new matches taken place between a newly diagnosed person and a buddy, which is great news. An update on volunteering. I'm not sure if this has already been said, so apologies if I'm repeating, but it's been confirmed that we have now been given £10,000 from the Big Lottery Fund as part of the Awards for All application that we put in at the back end of last year, and that money is to start what we're calling the Energy University. So essentially that will be us providing training opportunities to our volunteers. I had a quick chat with Rob about this, but really we need to have a bit of a kick-off to kind of see how we're gonna start this. The idea is to start small and kind of build up gradually. Training will focus on transferable skills, which will hopefully aid kind of employment, particularly those people who've maybe been out of work for a while, or really aimed at keeping people in employment. And one of the big things that we're looking at creating is an induction video for all volunteers that we can do as part of their kind of onboarding process. I'm going to have a chat with one of our volunteers, an MSer called Gemma Grant, who's actually the e-learning officer for Sheffield Fire Service. So I met her at the Sheffield meetup over the weekend, and she was really up for kind of helping out, giving us some advice and guidance on different platforms that potentially we could use. Obviously, the focus will be on that kind of a digital delivery of this. There's also been discussions around revamping the volunteer webpage as well, so Ellie and I have kind of had a little bit of a look at that. Obviously, there's lots of work going on the homepage itself, so there's still some conversations to be had around how those can kind of fit in, but particularly focusing on reducing the amount of barriers for one-off activities. And finally, just a plea, if you haven't already, just a reminder to input any hours that you've had when you've worked with volunteers or members of the community into the master energy list. I think that is everything. I look forward to seeing you all on Tuesday.